This is gonna be amazing. Young Yaz, I'm so deep you can't even see me anymore. Philosophical discussion about Kotaku being trash. Who would have expected that?
Before we delve into the main topic of today's video, we need to talk about Immortals of AVM as it ties into what today's story is about. Have you heard of this game?
Yes, it's absolute trash.
A lot of you may not have, but for those who have, you'll recognize it to be that first-person Spellcaster game. It's kind of like Doom, but with magic is kind of the best way I can describe it. It is a project that is admirable in its conception and what they were trying to do with it, but ultimately it came out kind of mid. You can see right here.
What do you mean it was admirable at conception and whatnot? Bro, Immortals of AVM was absolute hot garbage. No, wait, actually, it wasn't even hot garbage. It was cold, shitty garbage, okay? The only thing Immortals of AVM did that was interesting is paid a bunch of people to shill for it. They paid literally every streamer they could get their hands on to stream this game at the start because they knew that this is so bad that there is no way anyone will ever want to play it. I wonder if Young Yeah was on the list considering how nicely he is putting how much of a disaster and complete travesty this game was.
Here that on Metacritic, it's got a 69 nice Metascore from 77 critic reviews, and
again, this is why we don't trust critic reviews.
And even the user score is kind of hovering in that area, sitting at a 6.0. Now, you'll notice that the number of user ratings is pretty low. You'll see right here that there's...
because no one played it except Xbox fans.
There's only 119 user ratings, which suggests that not a lot of people bought this game, and that's why we're seeing such a low review rate for user reviews. And then things look even more grim if you look at Immortals of AVM's performance on Steam. Look at this paltry number of all-time.
I mean, that's not a bad retention number, to be honest. You know, this is what? 17-ish% retention rate after, 3 months? That's actually pretty good if you think about it. Look at that, 80 people to 480 peak. That's pretty good.
Peak concurrent play.
And an all-time peak of, 24-hour peak of 125 players. Bro, that's like 25% of players who ever played this game are still playing. That's honestly amazing. That's as good as it gets for a game. So what's the problem here?
Players, a mere 482 players is the most amount of people playing this game at once, which means that this game sold most likely paltry sums. And the end result was that it didn't take long for the studio who developed this game to suffer layoffs. So right here you can see this Polygon article from September 14th.
Bro, the game was so bad they actually laid off. Snap. That's great.
2023 that broke the news that Immortals of AVM Studio lays off nearly half of staff weeks after release. The news broke before it was confirmed by Brett Robbins, who's the founder and CEO of Ascendant Studio, who tweeted the following image with this message: "Today we're heartbroken as we part ways with friends and colleagues at Ascendant Studios, about 45% of our team." So what went wrong with this game? Well, the fact of the matter is that this game just didn't really stand out or do anything special ultimately. Again, the concept is really cool.
It was special. It was really special at being bad.
Cool, but at the end of the day, the market was...
I really hope he's getting paid to say, oh, the concept was cool. Not that, he actually thinks the concept was cool. The concept was stupid.
Saturated with just far better games. The marketing for Immortals of AVM wasn't particularly outstanding either. And there was just nothing.
The marketing was the most insane thing about this game. How many viewers on Twitch it had at its peak? 200, 300, 400k? Again, every streamer in the universe got an offer to shill for this game. Bro.
Thing about the marketing campaign of this game that presented something that looked utterly incredible. It looked like it might be a fun, good time for a short campaign, but it just felt...
I don't believe that. I have not seen the trailer, but if the trailer was so amazing, then why did no one play it? Trailers are a big part of the game actually doing well.
Felt like a game that didn't ultimately stand out from the pack, especially with the quality bar of games just getting higher and higher. And I'll say again, I admire that this game was made at all, because this is an EA published game, and we want EA and similar publishers to make more sort of single player focused games. But even in that area, you still have to find ways to kind of push the boundaries in certain respects and stand out from the pack and market your game well if you want that game to sell well. And Immortals of AVM, unfortunately, just kind of...
No, all of that sounds wrong and stupid. All you need to do to get people to play your game is make a good game. Look at Palworlds. Arguably, literally nothing is original about that game. Breaking records like there's no tomorrow. Absolutely, a shooting star. An absolute shooting star, in fact, no question. And guess what? Guess what, sweet cheeks? Again, there's nothing original about Palworld. You don't need to make a new, unique concept or anything for the game for it to sell good and people like it. You just need to make a good game. It's as simple as that. No one cares if it's the 25th Assassin's Creed or whatever. As long as it's good, it's good.
I've missed the mark on those fronts. It's by no means like the bad, terrible, awful game. You'll have like an enjoyable enough time if you check it out. But in terms of its substance and
did he seriously not get paid?
quality bar, wasn't at a level where it garnered mass interest or at a level that would get people to spend $60 to $70 on a title like this. We got even more insight into the development of this game when news outlet IGN published the following report.
I'm gonna check his channel if there's anything. Immortals of. Let's see what we find. Immortals Phoenix Rising review. That's not the same game. That was also 3 years ago, 6 months ago, 1 year ago. Doesn't seem like it. Immortals of AVM. Let's see. The Game Awards. Why is the Game Awards showing when he's talking about? Okay, so no, Yongya has not even done a single preview or paid. Maybe he has deleted it. Who knows? But why is he talking about an absolute Dude, is he just that weak that he can't call something that is an absolute disaster on every level a disaster?
On February 13th, 2024, discussing the general state of layoffs in the games industry and how among the studios who were hit was the developers of Immortals of AVM. And something that was revealed in that report is that the cost of Immortals of AVM sat around $125 million, and that includes...
Well, yeah, because it's not a bad game. Well, it's not a bad game looks-wise. There's a lot of things about the game that aren't technically, by the way, bad. It's just that the whole game in general is really, really bad and boring and stupid and whatnot. But a lot of things about the game are technically kind of high quality and require effort to do.
Both development cost and marketing. Apparently, the game cost $85 million to make and $40 million to market and distribute. To me, it doesn't feel like this game's marketing cost around $40 million because I really hardly saw it anywhere before its launch. I almost forgot that the game launched.
Yeah, because all the marketing went into streamers getting promoted and whatnot.
Once it did, or that it was supposed to launch on that day. And then when it comes to what happened during development, well, this is a quote from a developer who decided to remain anonymous, who spoke out about what their experience was like when making this game. They stated, there was some serious talent on the development team, but trying to make a AAA single-player shooter in today's market was a truly awful idea, especially since it was a new IP that was also trying to leverage Unreal Engine 5. What ended up launching was a bloated, repetitive campaign.
Is he implying that Unreal 5 is a bad thing? Oh, people aren't used to Unreal 5 as an engine! Bro, most people don't know what an engine is. I barely understand the concept of an engine. It's where you do things. Bro, and he's low-key just saying Unreal 5 was a bad choice because people probably don't understand Unreal 5. Journalism is sad.
That was far too long. It's crazy to think that this game's being called far too long when it really isn't that long. To complete the main story is roughly
Isn't that longer than Call of Duty Modern Warfare?
15 hours. If you do a mix of main campaign and side quests, that's 20 hours. But yeah, I do think that if you're going to come out with a new IP for a first-person shooter, you've really got to pull all stops with just its ambition and also just how it is presented to people. And Immortals of AVM just didn't accomplish anything extraordinary.
What does he mean? Pull all stops? Like, do you need to? What exact? Like, do you need to go all out?
Ordinary on either of those fronts. And so there are plenty of good reasons for why Immortals of AVM failed. It's unfortunate that it...
There's only one good reason. It's a bad game. That's pretty much it. Start and finish. There you go. Bad game. Poor gameplay. Shitty gameplay.
failed, but you kind of understand why it didn't garner that much interest, why it kind of flopped, and it isn't necessarily representative of the state of single-player games as a whole.
It flopped because they did not put a single cent into any pre-marketing except when it got released. Streamers played it, okay? And well, you can say a lot of things about gamers, good, bad, and whatnot, but one thing is for sure: if a streamer is playing a game and they are bored out of their mind doing it, and you are clearly visibly seeing that it's a shit game, they're not gonna buy it. Hiring streamers to stream your game is a very effective tactic if it's a good game. Bad games don't actually do that garbage. You see? No bad game does that tactic, because then everyone just blatantly sees, hey, it's a bad game. This is why hero wars or tactics or whatever that ad is on that you see constantly on places like Twitter and whatnot, doesn't actually show the real gameplay of the game, because it's worse than the fake trailer that they created.
But news outlet Kotaku will have you believe otherwise. With this headline, there's a reason why we discussed Immortals of AVM. It's because Kotaku uses this game as some kind of proof that it's a grim time for single-player games, essentially kind of putting the notion out there that you can see from Immortals of AVM's failure that single-player games are just in a generally bad place, or that they're generally...
Except Baldur's Gate is completely just took the world by storm, and it is fundamentally a single-player game. Also, you need to understand one thing. When you're talking about like Kotaku or some kind of developer, when they say single-player games versus multiplayer games, they don't actually mean the same thing as you and me. When you say single-player games to a gamer, they typically think a game where you literally cannot go even online with it. And multiplayer game is something where you need to be with a group of people. That's typically how people see it nowadays. But, oh wait, did I say that for... whatever. And the other side, when they say single-player game, Palworld is actually single-player game. Yeah, you can play in multiplayer, but that's just like a bonus that they added. Baldur's Gate, for example, developers are not going to call it a single-player game because it has a multiplayer element. So, but gamers will consider Baldur's Gate effectively a single-player experience. Because, yeah, you can play with a group of people. That is an option. But it is effectively a single-player game because, you know, the vast majority of people are playing it single-player, and it is designed to be easily done as a single player. That's the difference between how each group sees single and multiplayer games. And Kotaku thinks that everything needs to be a battle royale, probably.
Really just performing poorly or are kind of unsustainable. Here's the article in question that the tweet links to. Immortals of AVM proves it's a grim time for single-player games. And looking down, they highlight how there is a dire outlook right now in the state of the AAA market. To a degree, yes, when it comes to just how overbloated budgets can be.
No, not at all. The AAA market is doing completely fine. Ask Ubisoft. They have a quadruple A game now out almost. It's going to be amazing.
Just one aspect of this article that, you know, is a point to discuss. But then there are paragraphs like these that makes you question just what this article is trying to say and question its argument. It says right here, on paper, single-player games like Immortals of AVM sound ideal for those who aren't looking for another life-sucking live service game. But without better sales or in-game purchases to bring in money, it seems a single-player model is only sustainable on games with smaller budgets, which is entirely not true when you look at 2023, one of the best years in gaming ever. And how many of the best video games that year and how many bestsellers were single-player games?
True. Hogwarts Legacy was the best-selling game of 2023, and purely single-player game, by the way.
That made their money back and then some, and also were, nominees at the Game Awards, and all these things garnered both critical acclaim and commercial success. This statement right here is plain and simply not true. The article then talks about just the general state of budgets in video games, how budgets are increasing for single-player games, but nothing else about the market has changed to compensate. Did we miss the part where AAA games went from $60 to $70? On top of the fact that many AAA single-player games sell, like deluxe editions and, more expensive editions, or just shove in microtransactions, shoehorn them in these types of experiences where...
Yeah, there's no problem into putting in some microtransactions in your single-player game. Why not even?
They don't belong. Did we miss all that? The article continues, perhaps not every game needs to aspire to cutting-edge visual fidelity, and by saving money on graphics can make back its budget without relying on multiplayer and live service elements. That's true. Not every game has to have the most photo...
Graphics are not the primary determiner of how actually expensive a game is to make, by the way. There are plenty of other things that determine how expensive a game is to make.
Realistic graphics and have the the kind of insane budget that AAA games do. That's why indie games, a lot of them have this sort of artistic element to them, have a unique art style to compensate for the fact that they can't go crazy with the graphics, and those kinds of games do exist. But that doesn't mean there isn't a place for games that are cutting edge and have a high visual fidelity and have a high budget, as long as you have, people at the leadership who can weigh the risks and rewards well. You know what I mean? Like,
oh my god, again, young, yeah, but I have not worked a single day in my life. I have been pampered all my life, never struggled with anything. Leadership and communism, bro. Young, yeah, is just... Bro, every single time he can blame a CEO for something that a CEO is not responsible for, he will. Now, I'm not saying he's wrong, actually, in this case. The CEO does actually have to weigh out these things. But this is the first time in, 5 Yongya videos where I hear him start to go on a rant about CEOs, and this time, at least, it's something that CEOs are actually responsible to.
Like GTA 6, that game is probably going to be one of the, if not the most expensive game ever made. And that's a game that, without question, is going to make its money.
We already know it's the most expensive game ever.
Back, and then some, especially once GTA 6's online mode launches. And Take-Two kind of knows this, which is why they can afford to pour in the kind of budget that this game has, especially with the money that they made with GTA 5 and GTA Online.
True, but that's not the argument here. Kotaku's argument, to be completely fair, is essentially the same argument as for movies. The reason why modern-day Hollywood movies are getting absolutely out of control budget-wise is because everyone's using pretty much only special effects, and there's not enough special effects studios. So these studios are always in full demand to make stuff, to do stuff, to work on projects and whatnot, and well, they have no free time. They're always jammed full with requests, with people just waiting on lists for the studios to do something for them and whatnot. So they can just freely jack up the prices, and there you go. Because why not? If you this is simple economics, right? If you have a line that you can serve 10 people in a day, and there's 50 people standing in a line, better raise your prices, because, well, It just raise your price until the point where only 10 people are standing in the line every day. There you go. Fully efficient.
Line for that game. And so those kinds of games can exist as long as, you're not stupid about it and don't, issue a budget for a game that isn't.
I feel now he doesn't know what to say, and he's just kind of like, yeah, now feel don't stupid about it.
Suited for what you can afford and what you can make back with that game. And so all kinds of games.
Bro, Young, you haven't even made it to the 66% mark, and you're already kind of like out of breath in what to say. Man, those bills must be hitting hard.
This can exist, and all kinds of games have their risks and rewards. You just have to know how to assess them, which is obviously easier said than done. And while I do agree that the question of what if a game didn't have the biggest, most expensive version of itself is a good question to ask, and while I do agree that many companies do suffer from bloated budgets that leads to, financially less than ideal results that then the developers, the staff have to pay for and are the scapegoats instead of, the leadership who miscalculated all this stuff. While that stuff's...
So, bloated budgets can have easily two meanings. One is, bloated budget. There are two ways that budgets can be over bloated. One, the easiest solution, I think this is the one that he's talking about. The situation where you're just putting too much money into things that don't require so much money. And the other one is bloated budgets because things are too expensive. Because you can't do anything about it. It should be less expensive, but it's strange to call that a bloated budget. By the way, in a certain sense, I agree. By the way, if anyone's saying that, but that's the second way.
Legitimately a good discussion to have and stuff that I do agree with. The notion that Immortals of AVM in particular represents a grim prospect for single player games, that this game is the prime example.
It does show a grim prospect for single player games. Bad games. Those are the only games. Yeah, if you make a bad game, people are not gonna play. I mean, we're breaking new ground here with understanding of the situation, I know, but it is what it is.
Example of that, and that big budget, highly ambitious single player experiences cannot succeed without in-game purchases to bring in money and stuff like that. This is something that has been disproven by companies who have really reached for the stars when it comes to quality and, consumer friendliness. As plenty of people in the games industry, plenty of games industry pundits have highlighted. Here's, for example, Shinobi602 retweeting this Kotaku headline as misleading, saying that about 50% of the top 20 best-selling games in MPD last year were single player. So no, this headline makes absolutely no sense. Next up, we have Nick Calandra from Second Wind, who straight up called this headline goofy clickbait.
Kotaku doing goofy clickbait. Give this man a medal. He understands how Kotaku functions. Wow. And take away Young Ya's golden star because he doesn't understand how Kotaku functions. Anyway, that's it. I'm done here. I am done here. But don't worry, we're not finishing just yet because we need our...
Stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time.
Out. There we go. It is what it is, boys. Anyway, that was everyone's favorite communist, Young, yeah? Pretty hilarious stuff. I don't know if he's actually a communist, but wouldn't honestly surprise me in the slightest, considering how he does things. Jesus Christ. Anyway, this was Quizzer said. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already, and have a nice day. Bye-bye.